Hello everyone. Today's video is extremely important, maybe one of the more important ones I've done, and I hope that if you feel like it, you would like it, subscribe if you haven't already, and share it with others, especially those who you might be concerned about. Today's topic is postpartum depression. This is an extremely important thing for us to talk about for many reasons. It's extremely common, that's one reason. There are an estimated 3 million cases per year in the United States. And so I think it's important for us to discuss it so that if you ever go through this, or if you have a friend or a daughter or a neighbor or a coworker who's going through this, you will recognize some of the signs and maybe in a helpful way direct them to appropriate care. So what is postpartum depression? There are several concerns we have in moms after delivery of a brand new baby. The baby blues can be sort of a milder version of postpartum depression, just some, of course, exhaustion, because everyone's physically exhausted, some change in moods, some tearfulness, some feelings of being overwhelmed, some anxiety, some appetite changes, either excessive or very low. Obviously, sleep changes from the newborn schedule, but also from just difficulty sleeping from anxiety. And most of the time, those baby blues will go away in 1 or 2 weeks. Now, postpartum depression is a much more severe version of that. It is persistent even past the first couple of adjustment weeks. It can be extremely severe with such depression that things that used to bring you joy no longer bring you joy. Severe changes in appetite, sleep patterns, mood, feelings of being overwhelmed, of being a bad mom. This can interfere with bonding. Untreated postpartum depression can affect how you treat your baby, and through that ultimately can even affect some developmental stages and outcomes for the baby. So this is extremely important that it be recognized. So you may notice that your pediatrician starts to screen for this basically at every single well check, all the way through 6 months of age. Now, postpartum depression can happen even past that point, but generally it's felt that we would probably pick something up by that point. Now, you know, we as a pediatrician will see you before your OB sees you. Typically, if there are no complications, your OB is going to follow up with you around 6 weeks of age, and you could already be struggling by that point. So peds try to screen with a test called the Edinburgh postpartum depression screening test, and then we will score that at each of your visits. Hopefully I will, and your pediatrician will remember to discuss it with you, particularly if there are concerns. And I always tell my moms, so I hope you hear this. This is the most important message. If you do have postpartum depression, it is not your fault. It is not a weakness of yours. It is not a character flaw. Guys, we cannot let the old-fashioned, misinformed stigma around mental illness continue to affect us. And especially in postpartum depression, you guys, the reason this happened is because you just brought a new life into the world. We've got a very clear and easily understandable reason. So your odds of having postpartum depression can be increased if you've had previous anxiety or depression. This is obviously a major trigger. Your hormones are very much adjusting after the birth of the baby, and this can also affect things. And I just want to make sure you guys understand there's help available. It's not your fault. If you don't have enough serotonin, a neurotransmitter in your brain, that you feel horrible, there are medical treatments for that, guys. There is no reason to suffer. I've had moms tell me on the second baby that they suffered so severely with the first baby afterwards during the postpartum period, and they didn't realize there was help available. Or they mistakenly thought that because they were breastfeeding, they weren't allowed to use medication to treat depression, and that's not true. The family of medicines called SSRIs, selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, are perfectly safe to use during nursing. So please don't suffer thinking that you just have to be a martyr, because as we mentioned, if you get treatment and you're a healthier, happier person, you're going to be a healthier, happier mom and interact better with your baby. The thing that would break my heart is if you went untreated and it could impact your bonding with your baby. That could have a really lengthy implications, and that scares me and it makes me sad for you. So please don't suffer unnecessarily when there is help available. I want you to know that you're cared for, you're valuable, you are a good mom, and we want to encourage you and come along beside you to get you adequate and appropriate treatment so you can enjoy these days. You know, you're still going to be tired because newborns don't sleep at night. They sleep, just not at night. We can't fix that part of exhaustion. That's just a normal consequence of having a newborn. But so much of the suffering with postpartum depression can be fixed with treatment. So typically what happens at a well check, if you do have a very high score on your screening test for postpartum depression, is I will recommend you call your OB. Some of them, it depends on their personal protocols, will want to see you in the office, and some of them will say, oh, you tested positive for postpartum depression at your pediatric appointment for your baby. Let me just go ahead and get you started on meds, and then we'll see how you're doing at your next checkup with them. And that would be very appropriate. So please hear me that this is common and it is treatable, and there is help and there is hope. And I want to share with you, just in case we get to some emergency scenarios, there is a much rarer form, an extreme form of postpartum depression called postpartum psychosis. And that would be hearing things that aren't actually there, seeing things that aren't actually there, actively suicidal or homicidal thoughts, really, really severe things. And that would be a medical emergency. You really need to seek care urgently. And then I also wanted to throw out there's a 3 to 5% incidence of postpartum paternal depression, which is interesting, and I had not even thought about that as I was doing the research for this video. So that's important to know too, if the dads are suffering as well, that they can also get therapy, of course, and it's most likely in them when they have a previous history of depression even before the baby was born. So I want to share with you some important numbers. One of them is a suicide prevention hotline, which is always manned and available, and that is 1-800-273-TALK. which is T-A-L-K, and that is 8255. So 1-800-273-8255. Also if you don't like talking to people on the telephone, some people don't these days, there's also a live web chat that's available, and the address for that is suicide, this is all one long phrase, no spaces, suicidepreventionlifeline.org/chat. Did you get that? suicidepreventionlifeline.org/chat. And that's a live web chat you can do to get emergency services if you were having thoughts of self-harm. And that's our ultimate concern, is that you would think of harming yourself, and we don't want that to happen. But my concern is also just that you don't feel like you have to endure this and suffer through it when there's help and hope available. So please get that help if you need it. And I hope that this answers some questions for you, or could hopefully be just in time if somebody needed to hear this. I meant to make this video earlier and I looked back and hadn't already done it. So I hope you guys found this helpful. Thanks.